Diet culture extends far beyond the complexities of our relationship with food and society. The intersection with systems of oppression like patriarchy, financial status, anti-immigration policies, and racism intertwine and exacerbate the pressures we face regarding our bodies and food choices. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by Sociologist, Dismantling Diet Culture and Transforming the Way Latinx Communities Care for Themselves, Dr. Hortencia Jimenez. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the pervasive influence of diet culture, unpacking its definition and examining how it infiltrates our lives, leaving lasting impacts on our well-being. Then we'll introduce the intuitive eating, breaking down its principles, and offering actionable steps for those looking to embrace it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited for our conversation. But before we begin, I really just want to check in. How are you really?
How am I really feeling? I feel better. This week has also been a roller coaster ride of emotions. And so I'm grounded and I'm excited to share this space with you and your audience.
I am really excited for our conversation because, as I've told you, I've listened to your podcast, and with diet culture, it's something that has really impacted me, but I've never thought about it from the perspective of someone who didn't come with the same privileges as I have. And listening to your story, listening to your podcast, you really have educated me on how the systems of oppression can play such a huge role on someone's identity, on that diet culture, on every aspect of their life. So I'm excited to continue to learn from you in this podcast, in your podcast, in your work. And I'm hoping that my audience, whether they resonate or maybe they get to learn something, they get to be part of this very valuable conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to share this space with you, with your audience, and also for being honest and vulnerable and acknowledging like your privilege and acknowledging that our own lived experiences are so different, yet they connect to these systems of oppression and we're impacted in so many different ways. So thank you for listening to the podcast, for learning, for willing to learn and listen to other folks who look different and who have different experiences. I think that's the key, right? And that is the key to dismantling these systems of oppression and divesting from diet culture.
It really is. And that willingness to learn, that willingness to open your eyes and to realize not everyone has the same experiences. And that's something that honestly my podcast has really taught me, because I've had the opportunity, the privilege to get to talk to so many different people and realize more and more that my worldview and my bubble has been great for me in so many ways, but it's so harmful
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's not realistic. It's not representative of the people around me. And to be able to do the work that I do, that I hope I get to do, I need to move through that ignorance and become more willing to open my eyes, willing to learn. So I'm just grateful that anyone will have a conversation with me. And I'm grateful that you're continuing to have conversations. But let's jump into diet culture, because that's something we've now mentioned a few
Mm-hmm.
times. For people who don't know, what is diet culture?
Yes, so I come as a sociologist, first and foremost, my professional academic identity, but I also come as a Mexican immigrant, a Latina, queer woman of color. Like those identities are so important in how I see diet culture and how I am articulating diet culture from an like academic point. And for me, diet culture is the system of oppression. For me, diet culture is this interweb of different social institutions that intersect and reinforce and create inequality and systems of oppression. And to kind of unpack that, what I mean by diet culture as a system of oppression, one is acknowledging that it's an industry. Folks oftentimes think, okay, diet culture is an industry like the fat diets and stuff like that. Yes, that's a huge part of it. But for me, it's like linking all these social institutions in our society. How does the family as an institution, the education system, the government, the healthcare system, the media impact our sense of identity, belonging, and like our relationship with food and body image, because all these institutions send us messages. So that's how I kind of look at diet culture, as this macro system that is, obviously, we all know it's a multi-billion industry, right? And so it doesn't happen like in just in a vacuum, right? It's a web of interrelated parts.
It really is. And first of all, the people who we see that everyone's following that has millions of followers, right? And they are showing us a day in their life and what they're
Oh
eating. And
gosh,
it's like,
yeah.
right, how to
So
eat less than
problematic.
1,200 calories in a
Yeah,
day.
like how to starve yourself, you know?
Yeah.
How to feel shitty after the end of the day.
And that's just one small example that everyone has now come into by just
Yeah.
scrolling online of
Mm-hmm.
how we've idolized
Mm-hmm.
and have made such a normal part of society this idea of who you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to look like, what you're supposed to eat. And that impacts every part of your life. And then when you said educational institutions, for me, that brought up so much because I went to private Catholic school my whole life and we had amazing cafeteria and food options, right? We had that salad bar and pasta bar and wrap bar. Like we had everything. And it wasn't until I was in college and I mentored at a local elementary school. It was so cute. And I saw the snacks that they were getting after school and the
Mm-hmm.
food, and it was not
Mm-hmm.
anywhere near equivalent to the kind of food I
Mm-hmm.
was provided. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just another thing. There's so many systems and pieces and industries
Mm-hmm.
working together to make such an impact on our health as a
Yes.
whole, because what you eat, what you put into your body does impact you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely, I think, if since we're talking about the education system as, it's an institution and how it connects to diet culture, one is looking at the disparities in food, access to food. If you come from working class neighborhoods and it's predominantly one race, it's either like African American or Latinx, Latine, there's a disproportion in like the type of options of food, right? So it's also like inviting the audience not to place food in like a hierarchy and healthifying food, but looking at food as something that we need. But unfortunately, in working class communities, when there isn't a lot of resources, that translates to also there's not a lot of resources and options for food, and there's children who are experiencing food insecurity and housing insecurity, and that directly connects to your overall well-being, and it connects to your body, the relationship that you have with your body and the food. If you're experiencing food insecurity, that's one huge aspect. And the second thing I want to mention about how does the school system like also promote these beliefs and norms and practices about body image. One is looking at this binary of boys and girls. Boys get in line, girls get in this line, right? So that is part of diet culture, the reinforcing this cisgender heteronormative narrative. That's one, right? That is a system of oppression already. So just the way that these binaries work in school and how it's not friendly to children who are gender fluid or transgender. So gender huge, and of course sexuality, but then you get to middle school and high school, they have to take these tests. They have to the pacer test, I don't know, like the running, the push-ups, sit-ups, and like what if you're not able body, what if your body looks different, you're in a bigger body, the school system's not accommodating you in PE. And what I find actually even more harmful in the high school is when students have to take a health class or quote, quote nutrition class, and they need to track their food. And that is so problematic. And if we're talking about how does the education system promote these beliefs and norms, well, these are three examples.
Those are three very important examples. And
And there's more. We could get to college and talk about food insecurity in college students and microaggressions, but that's maybe we can leave that maybe for another podcast.
oh, it's so heartbreaking that
Mhm.
this has become the norm. And I'm even now thinking back to middle school and high school when it was like girls have to ask the guys to the dance, right?
Yeah.
Straight up that sexuality of it has to
Yeah.
be a male and a female, or the boys
Mm-hmm.
ask this one,
Mm-hmm.
and making so many people feel pressured, first of
Mm-hmm.
all, to
Yes.
have to conform to this idea of
Yes.
a binary sexuality, or just
Yeah.
it's not even binary, it's one option. It's one
Exactly.
option, and that's
Yeah.
really just isolating so many youth and really
Yes.
making them question their identity before they have a chance to figure out who they are.
Yes, yes. And one other thing that the school system is failing our children and our youth is sexual education. I am a sociologist. I study race, class, gender, sexuality, and I am a proponent of sexual wellness, sexual pleasure, and educating our children and our youth in age appropriate content. And that's missing in the schools. And so you think about teen pregnancy, you think about STDs and like safe sex and like all that is part of diet culture as a system of oppression, and the school enforces that. And you went to Catholic school. I was raised Catholic, so we don't even talk about sexuality. We don't even talk about pleasure. You're actually not supposed to have pleasure when you're not supposed to be in touch with your body. You're supposed to like give pleasure to the husband, right? But how are you supposed to do that when you're supposed to be a virgin? So you have these contradicting messages. So now I'm bringing in the family as an institution and shaping our ideas about our bodies, and that our bodies really don't belong to us.
Yes, and that adds to the idea of a man's image of what you should
Mm-hmm.
look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what you should eat. There was this thread on Twitter the other day, and it was talking about how it was so normal for a female to order a salad on a date. And if
Yes.
she does not order a salad, then the guy will make a comment like, "Oh, I love a girl who eats real food."
Mm-hmm.
But they
Mm-hmm.
love a girl who eats real food who still looks like she's not
Exactly.
eating. And that is so problematic. And when I saw
Yes.
this thread on Twitter, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I remember being afraid to
Mm-hmm.
order a
Mm-hmm.
salad, but afraid
Mm-hmm.
not to order a salad because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to fit what he would like. And, but
Exactly.
he
Because you've
might,
been conditioned, right? And you have to give yourself grace. And folks who have done this, like give yourself a lot of grace and compassion, because it's the social conditioning in our society, that these messages that we hear in the media, that we hear from friends, from family, and then you internalize them, and I believe you lose yourself in this process, and you lose that connection to your sense of who you are, and then the embodiment.
yeah, exactly. You don't have that connection to who you are and who you want to be. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to truly and fully love yourself when every message out there is giving you a reason not to or telling you why you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's a journey, right? So hopefully in this conversation and conversations that you have with other folks, part of like this journey of finding yourself and loving yourself is moving away from the toxic like love yourself positivity, and social media. Yes, it works to some extent, but part of that work is embracing where you're at right now in your life. Maybe it's not the best version, maybe it's not where you want to be, maybe, loving yourself is like, this is who I am today. This is the work that I'm doing to become a better person, like your inner healing. That is self-love. Self-love is nurturing yourself, taking care of your body, making sure you eat, you hydrate, the basic stuff. Basic, taking 5 minutes and breathing some fresh air outside. That's self-love. So it's like also moving away from this dominant social media narrative of self-love is this toxic, body positivity, because it can be toxic, right? Because you can't love your body. I mean, I'm sure you don't. I don't love my body every day, the whole day. I go through like phases, like because it's so dynamic. So, like, embrace that journey that is messy.
yeah. Oh, I love the way you just described self-love because that's really what it is. It's loving yourself through every phase and
Mm,
honoring every
mm,
piece of yourself. It's making sure you have enough water. It's
mm-hmm.
allowing yourself to eat and have the nutrition that you need. It's allowing yourself to have fresh air and walk outside. It's allowing yourself to cry when you need to.
Yes. I was
It's
just gonna tell you that, right? Sorry to interrupt you, like allowing yourself to cry. that is for me as an indigenous woman, like decolonizing our emotions has helped me so much in my own healing journey because we live in a Western capitalist society where if we're sad or we're grieving because we lost a loved one, or we're grieving relationships, friendships, or someone that you loved, or, just grieving in general, our society doesn't allow that space for us. We don't have that space. And so what we do is we begin to shame ourselves for our feelings, and we numb sometimes our emotions. So for me, a radical act of self-love is to cry, to let the tears out, to release them. That is self-love, is honoring that. And excuse the language, feeling shitty, feeling like it sucks, like I'll cry it out, and then I might feel a little better, right? That is self-love, is honoring all the feelings and not judging them. It's easier said than done, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, but that was so beautiful. It's so important to allow yourself to feel and to know that that doesn't impact your worth. There's this
Yes.
idea that you have to, talking about that capitalistic society, how you still have to show up to work the same day of a funeral of a loved one,
Oh
right?
my
It's
gosh.
this idea that you can't take
Mm-hmm.
time off, that you can't allow yourself space to have a bad day, to go
Mm-hmm.
through something super painful. That's part of the
Yeah.
human experience. You go
Yes.
through something traumatic when you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing issues with your health. You should
Mm-hmm.
not be so focused on, are they going to fire me? And
Yes.
honestly, that is society and what they're teaching us, that you have to show up.
Yes. And you bring such an important point here that I want to accentuate, which is that like diet culture and systems of oppression, what they do is they compartmentalize our identities. And this is a perfect example, is you're a worker right now, so you have to numb or shut all these other feelings, all this other stuff that's going on. If you're a student, you're in the class, or you're just a student, or me as a professor, we oftentimes have to like compartmentalize ourselves for those social spaces. And I understand that sometimes we have to, that we may not have a lot of choice or flexibility. But when we do have that flexibility, and that comes with the level of privilege of our social identities, right? So when you have that flexibility, try to show up with all your intersecting identities. I remind my students, you're in class, you're a student, but I know you have a life. I know that you're caregivers. I know you're student parents. I know that you're student veterans, student athletes. Like I remind them, like, show up, messy who you are. Just show up to class and I will honor you. And that's what we need to do, just showing up in the world and not compartmentalizing ourselves, because that is so harmful.
Yes. Oh, I want to have a teacher like you. I'm so tired of those like one absences syllabus,
Oh
right? Where it's
gosh,
like
yes,
one absence or your grade will
yes.
go down. I had
I
one teacher that
know.
was like, no absence, you have to be there.
That's
And yeah,
ridiculous.
this one girl
Yeah.
was super sick and
Hmm.
she was being threatened to her grade to not be there in a
Yeah, it's like you're worthless
post-COVID
space.
world,
Yeah,
first of all.
I know, right? But during COVID and post COVID, and yeah, right. And that goes again, and we're talking about, see how all these conversations, people are thinking, how does this have to do with diet culture? Because it's a system of oppression. So then what we're looking at is, not only are we trying to forced to compartmentalize ourselves, or people try to box our identities and our roles. The other part is like, where's that humanity of like a showing up of like how we are as messy and complex, human beings. And when we show up that way, we're not professional. And this ties into race, and like it really impacts women of color, BIPOC folks, queer folks of color differently. Is there's this script of professionalism that we have to change the way we speak, the way we dress, the way we handle ourselves, like the norms, because of this professionalism. So like even professionalism is tied to systems of oppression, and we can lose ourselves, our essence, our authenticity. And I'm here to say, screw that. Let's try to show up in all these different ways. And if it makes people uncomfortable, it's not even about me. It's about what people have internalized about a particular ethnic or racial group or a social identity. You're
Yes.
challenging those views.
Yes. Oh, I remember during one of my internships, There was this woman of color who mentioned to me about because I came in with my hair wet and I just got out of the shower and just got dressed and went, and how she could never do that.
Yeah.
She could never do that because her hair is expected to be a certain way.
Yes.
And I had
Yeah.
never thought about that, but it's so
Hmm.
true. There's this expectation of how you have to look, and based
Hmm.
on the color of your skin or your
Hmm.
ethnicity, it can,
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't even have the words, but it can really just be so heartbreaking that you can't show up as yourself. There's so much pressure and stress. I mean, just
Hmm.
the way
Hmm.
you have to, how much extra effort you have to put in so that people look at you and say, oh, you deserve to be here.
Yeah, yeah, and that ties in into like what are our collective beliefs about professionalism and how does this impact disproportionately like BIPOC folks and like folks who don't, and this ties in directly to like body image and beauty ideals, like having curly hair versus having straight hair, I have straight hair, but I braid my hair and I usually do one braid and sometimes I want to do two braids, but then I'm like, it's gonna sound sad. Then I'm like, I look too indigenous or I look too ethnic and like I become so self-aware and then I think, oh, I might experience like microaggressions at work or because I have in the past. So there's a lot of body work that, BIPOC folks do, that women of color do, and we think about what are we going to wear? How are we going to be perceived? How are we going to be treated? So there's a lot of negotiation that goes around body work, and that is
I,
rooted in diet culture.
I am so sorry you've had to experience that. I have never had to worry about what my hair looked like. I've never had to experience something like that. And I can't imagine, first of all, people just have microaggressions just in general. And then
Mm-hmm.
to be based on how my hair looks, it may make this worse for me. It may make me unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I have never and probably will never experience that. And I'm just so sorry that you've had to and that this is so normal in society.
Yeah, I think that's why like part of defiance, and it's defying this system of basically giving the middle finger. I say like I am professional, I am a smart woman, and I can try to show up with these identities. I can wear the red lipstick, I can wear the hoops, or I can wear my, indigenous earrings or whatever it might be to show that part of my identity that society and these institutions say, nope, that doesn't belong here. So it's slowly taking up that space and showing up. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of inner work.
I love that. You are so incredible for so many different reasons. Your vulnerability, your honesty, your courage is amazing. It's so needed, and it really sets an example for so many others who are feeling consumed by this idea of what their identity should be and how they need to present themselves to the world. So I
Mm.
just can't imagine how many people you're inspiring and helping.
Thank you, thank you. And that's why I'm really passionate about this work, not only as a professor, with my own students, because these are conversations I have with them on a regular basis, pretty strong content that I teach in class. And sometimes like I know that it's a lot for them, but I definitely want to spark or plant that seed in their development as a student in their profession, but the inner work that they can continue to undo. And also, of course, on social media and on my podcast, because, there's not a lot of Latinas, talking about this. And when we are talking about it, it feels like our voices are being muted by this louder conversation about no, actually do the diet, look this way, do this. This is actually more popular than this. Don't listen to this. It's an upstream battle.
The amount of money that companies make during the new year telling us,
Mm,
trying to sell us every supplement to look a certain way, it's
exactly. That there's something wrong with you,
so,
new me, right?
yes. Oh, I hate that because you don't need to change who you are just because the clock struck midnight.
Yeah, I know. And it's not just like one day, it's so many years of your life, There's research that shows that girls as young as 3 to 5 years are already starting to be self-aware of their body and start hating their body. And a lot of these messages come from where? The first institution, the family, the community, and then what they see, if they see. I'm not going to mention the corporations that promote cartoons and all these body beauty ideals and so forth, but the mass media has a big impact as well.
It really does. I remember being really young and watching a movie where I was a competitive cheerleader, and a movie said, "We've never had a fat cheerleader before." And I
Mm,
just internalized that. And I remember being afraid to eat and to grow. And
that's
at
so
5 years
sad.
old, eight
Yes,
years old, 9 years old, you're going to grow. And being
that's right.
afraid of a normal human experience is
Yeah,
that's not what we should be teaching kids.
exactly. And since we're talking about that, the intersection of the family as an institution in the media, my invitation for the folks who are parents is I invite you to reflect of what are the stories that you tell yourself? What are the narratives? How do you talk about your body in front of your kids? Or if you're talking to other folks and your kids are listening, how do you talk about your body? How do you talk about food? That's the first step, like become aware. Are you, because our kids listen, they do, and they grow up, and maybe you're not talking to them directly, but they're getting those messages. So if we really want to dismantle and divest and break these intergenerational cycles of diet culture, it begins with us. That's the word, that's the invitation.
It really does. That is such a good point because those are early role models, our parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
chances are we, at a young age, we idolize them and they're perfect to us. And then when they're criticizing themselves and talking
Mm-hmm.
down about themselves,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that can make it so much harder for us because naturally we want to criticize
Yeah.
ourselves. I don't know why we have that inner critical voice, but when we see that the people that maybe we idolize or look up to or
Mm-hmm.
see in the with these rose-colored glasses talking so poorly about themselves,
Yes.
it really does impact our worldview.
Yes, yes. So that's like one perspective, right? Another one is what if you do grow up in a home, like in my case with my kids, where I protected them as much as I could from watching corporate, okay, Disney movies. For many reasons, and they would watch other stuff, and it was all like body positivity. It was all like just feeling comfortable in their bodies, and they were very confident, and I allowed them to run around naked around the house. I tried to do everything I could as a parent at home because I knew once they would start school or be exposed to more media that would change and I would not have control. And surely that's what happened. My kids were so confident in their bodies and who they were. Once they hit school and they started elementary school, I started to see that shift and a change and becoming more aware of their body. And it didn't matter. Like, I know I set the foundation and I know they have that, but I can see how they're still being influenced by the media, by friends, and by the school. And I did what I could. And that just shows you the power that like externally our society has in conditioning our children, even though they get the positive messages at home. And they have hopefully like a role model where we have these conversations, but it's just the parent at home and you're against the whole society.
A lot of systems against you, but that is amazing. I wish I had that at home growing up. I wish I had the I know my parents did the best they could with the resources and knowledge and information they have, and I'm on anyway saying that they
Yeah,
did something wrong, but I wish that I
yeah.
had that messaging at a young age, at that
Mhm,
foundation of loving my body, not this
mhm,
foundation of,
mhm,
well, just starve yourself. Just get
mhm.
a little bit tinier and then people will
Yeah,
like you more. Or if
yeah.
someone's mean to you, makes a comment on your body, that's your fault. I wish that
Mhm,
wasn't the early
mhm,
messaging that I had in my brain. I wish I had that
mhm,
foundation of self-love, self-confidence.
mhm.
Oh, I would have spent so many years just maybe laughing when I thought
Yes.
being able
Yeah.
to not pass
Mm-hmm.
out was like the goal of
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah, yeah. And like since we're both being impacted by the culture with our upbringing, by our families, is also how can, if you want to, write an invitation, can you hold space for your family, for the people that, and what I mean by holding space is acknowledging that they created harm through the messaging and perhaps through actions, things that they did, violent things, perhaps, for losing weight or shaming you, because it is violence, like verbal and physical violence, that gets really touchy, but it's the truth. So, can you hold space to honor, to just acknowledge that? And, that this wasn't your fault and that there was never anything wrong with you. It's the messages that they internalized that eventually caused you a lot of harm. I think that's part of like the healing. You can be resentful, you can hold all those feelings, and eventually, heal and forgive if you want to. But, that's what I had to do is like, wow, my family created all this harm and it sucks. And I went through a lot of emotions, like a lot of the grieving of feeling sad, angry, and then okay, I'm okay, and then I'm not okay. They did the best they could, but they're still responsible. So there's that level of accountability of the harm that they created. And it's our responsibility to stop that cycle.
Never thought about it like that. You are absolutely right. Being able to admit that although they did the best they could, it still was harmful,
It
and
was
I'm
not
allowed to
okay.
be upset and angry by
Yes.
it. I'm allowed to feel and
Yes.
hopefully heal from it,
Yeah.
like you said, and stop it with me
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
my future children
Mhm.
don't have to go through
Mhm.
that.
Yes,
Uh,
if you want to have children, if you don't want to have children, you'll be surrounded by these beautiful kids, either as someone in the field of like social services or like mental health or an educator, like you'll be surrounded by children. So even if you decide not to have children, like you are a role model and you want to make sure that the messaging that you deliver is positive, that it's liberating and embracing and uplifting and the confidence of our children in our communities.
yeah, absolutely. And honest, because I think
Mm-hmm.
one thing I love about your podcast and your disclosures is the honesty in how you feel going through it.
Mm.
Listening to your story and your journey, it's just, I think a lot of times when people talk about more difficult things, they tend to brush through the feelings or kind of withdraw the feelings, right? And
Yeah.
disconnect. And I think that honesty of how you're feeling, how it impacts you
Mm-hmm.
as well, and letting people know that it's okay to have emotions and it's okay if
Mm-hmm.
something comes up for you, you're allowed to feel instead of having to just tuck it all away and pretend like everything's perfect.
Yeah, and like I'm getting emotional, like I want to cry, and the reason why, like I have those very vulnerable episodes where I'm talking about my own healing and journey. It's because I remember being in really dark places and checking, is there a podcast out there? Is there an episode? Is there something that I can hold on to where I don't feel alone, where I feel seen? And I didn't. And I didn't. I felt I was like the only one. And I think that's what gave me courage to, and that's what gives me courage to continue to show up authentically raw and vulnerable, which is scary, but I always think there's someone out there who needs to hear this so that they don't feel alone. Because I don't, that was me. I think about my own students. I always think about my students, on my young Latina students and what they're going through. And if they listen, they're like, oh, I'm not alone. Like Dr. Jimenez got me. She understands. Like there's someone out there who's speaking to my lived experience. So if my message can get to one person, I feel like I did my job.
Oh, you're doing your job and so much more. It's really, really difficult when you feel alone in something, right? But to not just recognize how alone you felt, you're making sure that other people don't feel alone in it. And that is so powerful because your story is not just proof that hope exists. It's hope for other people and something to, like you said, just hold on to.
Yeah, and as an Indigenous woman, I think like, part of this society is rooted in individualism, and healing is our individual journey, but we don't have to do this alone. It's collective. And if my podcast is a space for folks to feel that they're in community with me, that's part of it, and there's other ways that we can continue to heal in community and circles and ceremony and to do other things. So this is an invitation for folks, if you're struggling in anything in your life, whatever it might be, mental health or like anything in life, seek community. And community looks different. We have different communities, not just one community, right? It's a community of your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, like your neighborhood. There's different communities. So identify who's your tribe, who are the people that you need right now in your life, who can uplift you, and in your darkest moments, reach out. That's the hardest part. Reach out for help when you feel you can't do it alone. And you shouldn't do it alone. We've been conditioned that you should do this alone. There's a lot of internalized shame. Hell no. I'm so done with that. Like, as you know, I'm like, nope.
Yes, community is so important. There's this idea that strength is doing things on your own. And
Mm,
like,
mhm,
oh, I remember sometimes of hating myself for not being stronger, thinking, why am I not stronger to be able to do this alone?
mhm,
And
mhm,
that's terrible that that's how people feel, that I
mhm.
should be stronger, that I shouldn't be going through this. I should be better than this. And
Yes.
that I have to go through it alone because no one else can know. As
Yeah,
human beings, we're allowed emotions. It's part of being human.
exactly.
The human experience isn't all rainbows and butterflies and sunshine, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And it's okay to admit that there's a storm. It's okay to
Mhm.
admit that it's raining right now, and it's okay to reach out to someone else to help hold that umbrella for you.
That's beautiful. I love how you said that. I love that
Thanks.
metaphor. I'm gonna use it in class, okay? I'll give
Go
you
for it.
credit. And again, like bringing folks back to the conversation. If you're listening, you're like, wait, how does this connect to diet culture? Well, here we go. It connects to diet culture because diet culture is rooted in these values of individualism, right? So diet culture says, go on this diet, and if you fail this diet, you didn't follow it, it's your fault, you didn't do it right, right? So that's the value, right, of diet culture, is individualism. And bringing it back to what we just shared, it's again like, so if diet culture is rooted in individualism, and that you're a failure, you're not doing this diet right, you gain that weight, it's your fault, you, then it's the same thing when we think about healing. It's like, oh, this should be an individual thing. It's your individual healing. Yes, but in community. So divesting from diet culture and dismantling diet culture takes an individual, but takes a community to do this work. Takes everyone, right? You, the work that you're doing, just having me in your podcast, having this conversation, is you're already doing this in community of divesting and challenging diet culture. So I hope folks can see how the conversations that we're having are intersecting with diet culture.
Yeah, it's so true. Diet culture is so individualistic. And I'll give an example of one of my friends this after New Year's, because that's what we like to do. New year, new me. Have to go on a diet so that I can start the year off right. And the whole time she was like, well, I can't go out to eat. I have to eat at home
Mm,
because she has to eat certain meals and so clean. And if I'm with someone else, then I might not eat that way. And it's so individualistic and making us feel like we're going through it alone. We have to do it alone and we can't make a
yeah.
mistake. And
Mhm,
eating food should not be a mistake. But
exactly.
like I have to follow this diet exactly and I have to eat just lettuce for lunch and I have to do it alone is so
So,
harmful. You shouldn't have to do anything alone. You don't have
mhm,
to be alone. You don't deserve to feel like you have to be alone. You do not deserve to feel like you have to
mhm,
do everything alone and go through everything alone, because you're worthy
mhm,
of love, you're worthy of support, you're worthy of
mhm.
the community that you need.
That's right. And that's what diet culture does. And that's how diet culture thrives, is that one by the individualism and also the alienation from your social support system, like the social activities, social events, your social life. It has a big impact. So we're here to say no, we can enjoy food and be in community with friends, loved ones. Food brings so much joy. It's not only like nourishing, but for me, food is one, my love language. I always say that. But secondly, it's a way to connect with others, to share my love, to share stories, experiences. It's a social connection, and that's beautiful. And I'm like, fuck diet culture wants to take that away from me. Something so beautiful as that social connections. No, like I'm tired of being by myself and grieving and healing and doing this hard work. Like I deserve joy. I deserve to be in community with other folks. So I'm inviting everyone to continue to fall in love with themselves, but can also do that with others, right? In community. And what better way to celebrate it with food?
Oh, I love that so much. And another thing that you talk about on your podcast, first of all, before I say that, tell everyone the name of your podcast and where they can find it
Yes.
because we've mentioned it so many
I
times.
know,
I want
right?
to make
Yes.
sure everyone knows where to find it.
Yes, it's called Dismantling Diet Culture, Fuck Being Calladita, and it's on all major platforms. Please follow it, listen to it, and leave a 5-star review.
Podcast. So one thing that you talk about that I really love is the intuitive eating principle. So as we're wrapping up, can you give maybe take away an actionable item for someone who's listening to this and is ready to say F diet culture and make that step forward?
Yes, yes. So, intuitive eating is a like scientifically proven framework where you heal your relationship or you begin that journey of healing your relationship with food through an undieting approach. It's a very like holistic, compassionate approach, and it has 10 principles. I don't think you want me to go through all the, I can mention them, just mention them. So there's 10 principles of intuitive eating, rejecting the diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, respect your fullness, discover satisfaction, honor your feelings without using food, respect your body, exercise, and the last one, honor your health. I know it's a mouthful. It was a lot that I listed. So there's 10 principles. And as a sociologist and a health coach, I have to say that I love these principles, but there are some constructive criticisms that I have about this framework, and how it can be tailored differently to the communities that we work with, right? So it's not a perfect framework. So I just want to kind of just put that out there, for folks to know where I'm at with the framework. I love it. There is still areas of improvement, but what I like about this framework is that the first principle is reject the diet mentality. So it's like that's the hardest part. It's like what? Reject diets, reject the diet mentality, like acknowledge that diets don't work. That if you've been a chronic dieter most of your life or have disordered eating most of your life, you know that you can lose the weight, but you're going to gain it within 3 to 5 years, So it's like this disconnect. But rejecting the diet mentality is hard for folks because you hold on to a lot of the social perks of dieting, like the validation that you may get from your loved ones or family or friends, like, oh, you look so great, and you feel shitty inside. You lost weight, you might externally look good, but inside you feel like you're empty, right? So rejecting the diet mentality is very difficult when there's social perks associated with it. So that's one of the first principles. And I don't know how much did you want me to like go into these principles, but that's the first one. So you have to reject the diet mentality and acknowledge that diets don't work and begin this healing process of listening to your body, of connecting to your body. And instead of following a tracking system, an app, or weighing your food, it's like, can I listen to my body when it's hungry? That's part of rejecting the diet mentality, right? So my invitation for folks right here is, hey, how much of diet culture have you been influenced? All of us have been influenced by diet culture because we live in this society. So can you begin to write down or perhaps reflect, journal, like, okay, what have I internalized? What are things that I do perhaps that I didn't even recognize? Like self-reflection is key. So that's my invitation. If like a call to action would be, hey, what are some values that I have internalized, and how can I slowly and in the process give myself compassion of begin to divest and change that narrative and unlearn. And I'm still in that journey, you know. I'm a health coach, I'm everything. But I'm a person at the end of the day. I'm a human, so there's still a lot of conditioning that I'm undoing, that I'm unlearning, that I'm changing the narrative on a regular basis.
It's a process, but it's such a worthy one. Dr. Jimenez, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for creating this safe space to be really honest and vulnerable, and for your willingness to learn and provide these perspectives to your audience. Thank you. This is how we make change. This is how we build community. So thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.